Hey, what's up, NFL addicts? And we are ready to talk some pigskin today. I am ready to talk to three fellow NFL fans who are from different fan organizations. They're not all Texans fans. I don't want to have four Texans fans on here because, I don't. First of all, I remember a couple of years ago there weren't four Texans fans. But, hey, we have all been through the dirt with all of our franchises except Armin, and we're going to talk about that here. But I'm going to kind of introduce everybody one by one. We're going to kind of talk about it. I'm Mike. I'm in Houston. I'm a Texans fan, obviously. Brian is up in Minnesota. He is representing the Falcons, the Purple People Eaters. Josh, I think you're in Dallas now, right?
I'm in Austin.
You're in Austin. Sorry, I just, you're not Houston. And, and he's a Steelers guy, so we're going to talk some Steel Town. And Armin, who we all feel awful for, he is in Washington State, and he is a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, who they've known a little bit of success the past few years. So that's all, just feel really, really bad for him. But I think a good way to start this off would be just kind of talk about how we each became a fan of the team that we are a fan of. And Armin, champions go first. Casey, now I'm going to tell the truth here. He used to be a Texans fan, but he got out. It's like quitting drugs, at one point. And I'm glad.
He went to rehab?
But it actually worked out for him. 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. So, hey, Armin, why don't you go ahead and tell us how you converted to the Kansas City Chiefs? Before they won.
Used to be an Oilers fan, actually. So, because I grew up in Houston, Oilers fan.
Miserable. Yeah,
exactly. And then they moved to Tennessee, but at that point, I had grown attached to all the players. For a long time, Steve McNair was my favorite NFL player. So then I became, and people in Houston will kill me for this, but I became a pretty diehard Tennessee Titans fan for a while, just because I knew
better than
Jeff
Cowboys.
Fisher and Eddie George and Frank Wycheck and Javon Curse. I knew those guys. Then the Texans came back as the Titans were a lot of those guys were starting to retire. Became a Texans fan, and then Easterby happened around the same time that I was buying season tickets to go see football games at my alma mater, where some dude named Patrick Mahomes was playing.
Heard of him?
Yeah, that we all I was bringing people to games, telling them hey, this one's different. I don't think anybody could have predicted he'd become this, but we knew he was good. And so when he got drafted to Kansas City, it's happening during the Easterby years. It was very easy to be well, I can transition over. I don't do that. I've never done this with any other sport. Been a team hopper. I'm very dedicated. I watched the Astros when they were having 0.0 Nielsen ratings. Yeah. Okay. When they lost 110 games 3 years in a row. So for this one, it is weird, but the Patrick Mahomes connection has been very kind to me.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with people. When he told me about Patrick Mahomes, I was like, no, I want Deshaun Watson. He's like, why? Mahomes is better. And I was like, dude, that's just B.J. Simmons redux. Because I was like, no Texas Tech quarterback, no spread offense quarterback can succeed in the NFL. So, I will never, ever say that again. I have been corrected. Brian, you are probably the longest suffering fan here because you are a fan of the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Convinced it's cursed, 4 Super Bowl losses, and many more heartbreaks along the way. I'm still mad about the overtime game with the Saints because it was bullshit. But I know you probably feel much worse about that, and Gary Anderson. But hey, now all of the bad ones out of the way, tell us not only how did you become a Vikings fan, but why are you still a Vikings fan?
Okay, so you've mentioned that it's kind of common knowledge that Texas is the state of football, and Minnesota kind of gets this reputation as being the state of hockey. However, if you live here, there's way more Vikings fans than there are ever Wild fans or North Star fans before that. And I grew up with a family that had season tickets to the old Met Stadium. So this is before the Metrodome. This is when basically Bud Grant was, the head coach of the team. The weather was whatever it was. Bud Grant was famously would never allow heaters on the sidelines. So all the, visiting teams, are huddled around the heaters and everything else. Bud Grant would never allow it. So all of the Vikings, really had to become kind of Siberian warriors. And all of us in the stands were bundled up in the most winter gear, because I remember as a kid at Met Stadium, again, it's open and there was a wind that just came whipping through that thing. And so, my parents used to bring like hot chocolate in one of those big air canteens. And I just, grew up going to Vikings games. And I think the most heartbreaking thing is, and yeah, for sure, Gary Anderson, you hit the nail there. But the Vikings, maybe until this year, are always in it. They're never like so terrible that they're not in the conversation. So some years they're definitely favored to win. Some years they're maybe going to be a wild card team. But I bet you over the last 40 years, I've never looked this up, but I bet you over the last 40 or 50 years, the Vikings have to be in the top 3 or 4 teams making the postseason on the regular, because they always seem to be there, and then they always choke. And it's always some ridiculous choke in the fourth quarter at the end of the game when everything's going great. And if there was ever a metaphor for Lucy pulling the football away from Charlie Brown, that is like being a Minnesota Vikings fan. You think this is the time the football's not going to get pulled away? Wrong again. So yeah,
I remember thinking the miracle pass with Keenum to.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, the gods have finally favored the Vikings. They're finally going, and then they got destroyed the next week. But still, it was just like, this is it. This is finally it. This is their moment.
Yeah.
Something finally went their way. Yeah.
In recent years, that is most definitely the most hype level this city of Minneapolis and St. Paul and the whole state has been like, this is it. This finally, you're right. There is a sign from above. And there was actually a really cool meme that went around where it was like Prince's ghost was blocking the one guy that got in the way of Stephon Diggs and, set the block.
Was that the year Prince passed away too? Wasn't it?
What's that?
Was that the year that Prince passed away?
It might have been, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So, it was like the perfect ghost meme. And so we thought, all right, this is going to be it, right? You took Prince from us, but we're going to get the Vikings. This year, my expectations are so minimal. I'm actually kind of looking forward to this year because anything that we do is going to be good, and that's probably anything that's positive is good. And Mike, that's something you're probably very accustomed to up until this last year as a Texans fan.
Yeah, say it's time to start looking at the draft when the week starts, when the season starts. Yeah, that's
I already asked you. I already said. So, what time of after how many weeks is it? Is it permissible and or ceremonial to begin looking at the next year's draft? Yeah.
All right, Josh. Have you been a Steelers fan from go? And I think that's got to be crazy because I know there are a lot of Cowboys fans where you're at. And I know that they do not like the Steelers. So, how's it feel to be a little bit behind enemy lines? And how did you become a member of Fieldtown?
It's amazing. I when I actually, I'm in Austin now, but I did live in Dallas 15 years. And I do remember Roethlisberger's rookie season. I went to the game with some Cowboys fans. And of course we beat the Cowboys in Dallas, which we usually do. But I remember the crowd and the sports talk radio the next day, they were appalled because all these Steelers fans were in their stadium because Steeler Nation, we are everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I've been one of the best traveling teams in the league.
Yeah, I've been a Steelers fan. I know the exact date. It was January 20th, 1980, Super Bowl 14. I was 6 years old, and I remember watching it with my family, and we won. We beat the Rams. It was 31-19. I remember that game. And ever since then, I've been it was Terry Bradshaw to Stallworth. I had a Stallworth jersey the next year, and I've been a lifelong fan. I mean, I grew up like 40 miles from Pittsburgh, so it's kind of in the water there that, you're a Steelers fan. Even though I grew up in Ohio, I was closer to Pittsburgh.
What are you going to do, be a Browns fan?
Right. Yeah, right? No, never.
No, can't stand those guys. Yeah. But, so I've been a lifelong Steelers fan, and it's great being a Steelers fan because we, in many ways, run a very model franchise as far as, doing things the right way. And we haven't had Super Bowls recently. It's been, 10 years, I guess, since we won our last one. But, Tomlin doesn't have a losing season. We're always competitive.
You're welcome, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, he was, DC there, but
when,
I mean,
when
like
we,
last
when,
year,
I didn't even remember that he was a DC.
we decided it would be a smarter move to keep Brad Childress on as the head coach and let Tomlin go to the Steelers.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I love it. We've had 3 head coaches in.
That's what I admire about the Steelers. They've what, Chuck Noll, and then the Chin, and then Tomlin. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I love that.
I love dynasty era in the 70s. That's incredible.
Yeah, I love that. I love that loyalty. And yeah, the dynasty era is why I'll be actively cheering against the Chiefs, because we can say number of years and all of that. We won 4 in 6 years, so that hasn't been done yet. So I really hope that it's not the Chiefs this year, because I don't want anyone to equal that.
My favorite team of all time is the Steel Curtain of the Terry Bradshaw, the Mean Joe Green. That team was just incredible, and just being a fan of NFL films, I've watched so much stuff on those teams. Just today, when people are like, "Hey, name your top 5 quarterbacks," and I put Terry Bradshaw in there, like, "You're stupid." I'm like, "Hey, I love him. I love TB. He was a tough little son."
And he called
Josh, which year did you say that you watched them beat? Was it the Rams? You said
it was beat the Rams. It was January 20th, 1980. Yep.
So I think it was the year after that, or the year before that, I watched the Vikings lose to Jim Plunkett and the Raiders.
Yeah.
Purple people eaters, man.
Jim Plunkett.
Well, I am a long-suffering Texans fan. Look, it was to the point where I was ready to quit. I'm not even going to lie. And I'll get to that story here in a second. Kind of at the same time, Armin, he almost seduced me to the Chiefs. I was this close. You tell me, I was so mad when I thought we had blown our chance to get CJ Stroud. Here's the whole deal, though. I grew up in Atlanta. I always we have family out here. So I was a Falcons fan, but I kind of rooted for the Oilers just because we have family out here. I was like, great, you picked 2 teams who know how to blow it every single year. That's awesome, Mike. Way to go. I mean, I still blame myself for 35-3, Armin. So I'm sorry. That was kind of my fault, I feel like, because I was still in Atlanta. I'm wearing the Oilers blue and stuff. I was all in. I was like, Warren Moon's need to get his ring, establish himself as one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. And right when I moved here, they moved. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be a Cowboys fan. I guess I'll just stay a Falcons fan. And I did stay one, and I tried to follow both teams when the Texans launched, and then it just eventually got to the point where I was like, it's just too hard. I'm just going to follow just the Texans. I was writing about them. I was podcasting about them. That's actually, no, it was the Rockets how Armin and I met. But, you're a fan of one team here. You're usually a fan of all of them. But, it's been ups and downs. It's always felt like a little bit of underachieving. I feel like this is the first time in the entire franchise history where I feel like I have faith in ownership, leadership, everyone that's upstairs ever. So when we felt like we had blown that just gimme game again, 4th and whatever, and then you go for the 2-point conversion and win the game in the last game of the season to lose the number 1 pick, I was so mad. We have a text thread, me and Armin. I was like, I'm so mad. I'm going to throw away all my text and shit. I went in my kids' room and I took all their text and shit to donate to Goodwill. I was that mad until they hired DeMeco Ryans. Like, wow, okay, that's actually something smart. And I said, damn, if they don't go stupid. And I thought they were going to, because I believed all the stuff. They find a way to draft CJ Stroud. I'll stay all in. I am all in. So there we go. So I had my moments of doubts and pain, but it's feeling right now like on paper, it feels pretty good that I'm glad that I stuck with it. But it's not been easy. Like I said, it's pretty gross when it's Labor Day and you're looking at the draft as an NFL fan. It is. And that's how it's been a long time for Texans fans. And the fact, if you really think about it, the Texans have hit on 2 franchise quarterbacks in the last 7 years. One of them just turned out to be a pervert. So just please be as good of a guy as you seem like you are, TJ. That's all I'll say. But yeah, it's been a long road. But we'll kind of talk a little bit more about our teams as we go through the thing. The plan here is we're just going to kind of go through each division, talk about each team kind of briefly. And I want everyone to understand we're just fans. We're not analysts. We don't know the 4th string inside linebacker for your team. So we might not know everything. It's really just casual conversation. We might know our division a little better, maybe even our conference, or maybe it just might be Armin just flexing, the whole time about how his Super Bowl rings are really enough. All he needs, he doesn't need to wait. He can just carry his Super Bowl rings all the time. That's kind of what we're going to do.